problem with the substance of the memorandum by the President to Parliament. The 4 key issues are issues that have been debated, talked about largely and widely in this country. The issue of official opposition and where that position should sit has been debated largely. The issue of the funding, I cannot overemphasize. And I know there is a process that is in place that will ensure that we anchor and constitutionalize in a way that now those who have been doubting the constitutionality, because I don't agree with the position of the MP for Kangema that CDF is unconstitutional. It is not. But there are people who are trying to portray it as unconstitutional. We want to seal those loopholes. I have no problem with that. I don't have a problem with answering questions before people's representatives. I also don't have a problem at all with the gender principle, because we embedded it in the Constitution. We need to actualize it. But I have a problem with the 2 things. Madam Speaker, number 1 is the process and the procedure. And number 2 is the principles and honesty in politics in this country. So beginning with the number 1 issue on the process and the procedure, whereas my colleagues across the aisle are really struggling to separate and distinguish how different it is between the memorandum from President William Ruto and the process that was started by the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, I don't see any difference. In fact, if you ask me, the initiative by President Uhuru Kenyatta had more people participation than this that is now being generated by William Ruto. Why do I say so? At least for President Uhuru Kenyatta, he started a process with the people. He created a task force which went to the people. This one is a president who is writing direct to Parliament, no consultation. We don't even know who he spoke to. Whether he spoke to people who visited him at State House, I don't know. This one is a direct initiative by the president. I just want to caution members of Parliament and the people of Kenya that it is not right, and I want to repeat it, it is not right to encourage the president to initiate constitutional amendments. This country has enjoyed democracy fairly compared to our counterparts across the region. This country is standing out. This country, probably with Ghana, are standing out as countries that are promising in terms of democracy. We should not allow any indication of an individual rolling back those gains. And there is a possibility that one can test waters. Don't allow the president to start testing waters by writing to Parliament for constitutional amendment tomorrow, and with the gerrymandering that I have already started seeing, and the games being played around with the members of the opposition now being invited at will, and Jubilee almost gone to the other side, with MDG gone, with UDM gone, and many individual MPs, including now my party, is under threat of being raided. I foresee a possibility of a president, once emboldened, can recommend far-reaching amendments to the Constitution, which may even take us to a life presidency. That is my fear. Number 2, Madam Speaker, look at the issues that have been raised in the memorandum, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, when we raised most of these issues, look at BBI. BBI recommended that the person who comes second in presidential election should be made a member of Parliament, to be in this house, to be able to participate and lead the troops from the floor of the house. Look at the issue of the cabinet. We recommended that cabinet should come from Parliament, and we said that even those who would come from outside would be made ex-officio members of Parliament, as Attorney General used to be. Madam Speaker, on the issue of the 2/3 gender principle, that has been captured very well and exhaustively in detail in the BBI. Madam Speaker, I can say in a nutshell that when we proposed this to the people of Kenya, we were called names. I remember Kenya Kwanza and the leadership of the Kenya Kwanza called us selfish, people who are interested in grabbing power, people who want to extend power and existence in office of certain unnamed individuals, but the target was Uhuru Kenyatta. People who are looking for space for people who should be retiring, that was the word then. And we were told that we were not focusing on the needs of the people of Kenya, and that the people of Kenya are suffering. That constitutional amendment is not a priority. Madam Speaker, I don't know whether now the people of Kenya are enjoying and that the living standard is now, the cost of living is low. Yet, when I walk across, we are suffering even more than last year. The cost of food is unaffordable. There is the drought situation in the country. How I wish that the language of President William Ruto, when he was campaigning, he sticks to that script and make the people of Kenya have a bearable life. Instead of writing memorandums to us, these are issues we can deal with. We can sit down as a country and agree that we want to go the route of constitutional amendment to introduce the official leader of opposition, to introduce cabinet secretary to come to parliament and become members of parliament instead of passing through the back door and escape routes to look for a way of bringing strangers in the house. And I heard Honorable Murugara saying that we allowed some 2 strangers. The president is not a stranger. Look at the presidential systems across the world. The president is part of a legislative process of the country. That is why he is the last one to assent to the bills. He cannot be a stranger. The other issue that you have brought of the CS for Treasury, that is not a constitutional provision. In the Constitution, it is only allowed to make pronouncement. He can even make it from Uhuru Park, from KICC. It is us who decided to bring in a standing order provision to allow him to stand there, which is, in my view, unconstitutional. But we are living with it. And by the way, those pronouncements don't make any, there's no value to those pronouncements. We are only living with our neighbors in the East African community. Madam Speaker, I want to wind up by saying this very strongly, that there is dishonesty in this country. How I wish that, and Dr. William Ruto is my friend, how I wish that he went back to his campaign pledges. Our people are suffering. Constitutional amendment, I want to take now his position when he was campaigning. Constitutional amendment is not a priority for this country. The priority is the cost of living. Don't overtax our people. Stop snooping in our phones. If I send money to my mother, that is not income to my mother. It is a transfer of resources. He should consult people like us who have extensive and wide knowledge in financial management. The issue of taxation should be left to KRA. The president can never be a tax collection agent. We have competent people in KRA. If Kenyatta family is not paying tax, they must pay. But let KRA follow them. Anyone who is not paying tax should pay, but let KRA follow them. Let us not weaponize KRA. You are the ones who told us that President Uhuru Kenyatta was weaponizing state institutions. You are doing exactly that.